For years, I lived in the shadows of my own home, cleaning my brother's room, cooking his meals and washing his clothes. My parents treated him like a king. For me, I was like a servant with no hopes. Some children are born to serve, Mom would say, as if my life was written in obedience. But on his wedding day, a single glance from his fiancé's father, and one phone call, turned my world upside down. The DNA results didn't just reveal the truth. They shattered everything I thought I knew about my family, and my parents couldn't believe it. I lived inside a house that never belonged to me. I learned that early, before I learned multiplication, before I learned geography, before I learned what freedom felt like. I learned it in small ways at first. In where I was allowed to stand. In where I was not allowed to sit. In the fact that my hands were always busy, and everyone else's never were. Some children are born to be protected. Some are born to be admired. And some, my mother liked to say, are born to be useful. I was useful. The Whitaker house sat at the end of a curved, tree-lined street in Oak Ridge, New Jersey, the kind of neighborhood where delivery trucks slowed down and people lowered their voices instinctively, as if money itself could hear disrespect. 3 stories. White brick. Black shutters. A circular driveway wide enough to make arrivals feel ceremonial. From the outside, it looked like stability. From the inside, it was a hierarchy. My parents, Eleanor and Charles Whitaker, lived on the top floor. Their bedroom had vaulted ceilings, a fireplace that never went cold, and a private balcony that overlooked the yard. My brother, Lucas, occupied the second floor. 2 rooms knocked into one. A bathroom larger than most studio apartments. A gaming setup that glowed blue at all hours of the night. I lived in the laundry room. Not a converted one. Not a guest space renamed for politeness. The actual laundry room. A narrow space off the garage, where the washer shook the walls at night and the dryer hummed like a second heartbeat. My bed was a fold-out cot wedged between the detergent shelves and the water heater. There was no window. Only a small vent near the ceiling that smelled like dust and hot metal. When I was younger, I asked why. Eleanor didn't look up from her phone when she answered. You don't need much space. You're not like Lucas. I woke up every day at 4:45 a.m. Not because anyone told me to. Because if breakfast wasn't ready by 6, Eleanor's mood would sour for the entire day. And when Eleanor's mood soured, things went missing. Privileges. Silence. Sometimes meals. So I woke up before the house stirred. I wiped counters already clean. Polished floors that no one noticed. Laid out plates I would never eat from. Lucas came down around 8 most mornings, dragging his feet, scrolling on his phone. Hannah, he'd say, not looking up. Where's my blue shirt? I'd find it. Hannah, you forgot to steam this. I'd apologize. Hannah, why is the coffee bitter? I'd remake it. He didn't hate me. That was the strange part. He simply assumed I existed to respond. The rules weren't written down, but they were enforced with consistency. I didn't sit at the table. I didn't speak when guests were present unless spoken to. I didn't introduce myself. If anyone asked who I was, Eleanor answered for me. She helps around the house. When I was 13, a neighbor once smiled at me and said, "Oh, you must be the younger sister." Eleanor laughed. A soft, embarrassed sound. "Oh no," she said quickly. "Hannah's different." Different covered everything. Why I didn't attend school past 8th grade. Why I didn't have friends. Why I didn't have a phone until I bought one myself with grocery change. Why I had no birth certificate, no passport, no social security card. Those things are complicated, Eleanor told me. You wouldn't know what to do with them anyway. I believed her. I believed everything. She said it casually the first time, like a proverb. Some children are born to serve. I was 9. Standing on a chair to reach the stove. Stirring sauce while Eleanor watched television behind me. Not everyone gets the same role, she continued. Lucas has leadership energy. You're supportive. supportive. I repeated it to myself when my arms ached, when my hands cracked from cleaning chemicals, when I ate leftovers cold at the sink. Supportive meant necessary. Necessary meant allowed. And being allowed felt like safety. I knew I didn't look like them. Charles and Eleanor were both pale, light-eyed, soft-featured. Lucas looked like a carbon copy of Charles at 20. Same jaw, same smile, same way of taking up space. I had darker hair, sharper cheekbones, eyes that leaned green instead of blue. Once, when I was 11, I stood in front of the hallway mirror and pressed my face beside Eleanor's reflection, comparing. She slapped me so hard my ear rang. "Don't do that," she said flatly. "It's unsettling." I never asked again. Lucas proposed to Emily Carter on a yacht in the Hudson. The photos went everywhere. Instagram, Facebook, framed prints in the hallway. Emily was polished in a way I'd only seen on television. Neutral colors. Perfect posture. A smile trained to soften rooms. Her family was wealthy. Old money wealthy. The kind that didn't flash. When Eleanor found out who Emily's father was, she cried. "This changes everything," she told Charles. I heard it from the laundry room. The wedding was scheduled for late September, at a restored estate an hour outside the city. 200 guests. Live string quartet. Imported flowers. I helped with everything. Addressed envelopes. Tracked RSVPs. Polished silverware until my fingers cramped. I assumed quietly that I'd be part of the ceremony. 3 weeks before the wedding, Eleanor called me into the kitchen. She sat at the island. I stood. "We need to talk about expectations," she said. My heart lifted. "Yes. You'll be assisting the staff. Coordinating behind the scenes. Making sure things run smoothly." I waited. "You won't be sitting with us," she added. "This crowd. They notice things." I nodded. That night, I found the seating chart on Eleanor's laptop. My name wasn't on it. The rehearsal dinner was held at a private club overlooking the river. I wore black. Eleanor chose it. "Neutral," she said. "Invisible." I carried trays between tables, refilling glasses, keeping my eyes low. That's when I noticed him. Emily's father. He wasn't laughing. Wasn't drinking. He was watching. Not scanning the room. Watching me. When our eyes met, his expression changed. Not curiosity. Not interest. Shock. He approached slowly, like someone afraid of spooking an animal. "What's your name?" he asked. "Hannah," I said. He swallowed. "And, do you know where you were born?" The question made my chest tighten. I live with the Whitakers." His hand shook as he nodded. "I see," he said quietly. "Thank you." He walked away, already pulling out his phone. Across the room, Eleanor stared at him with a frozen smile. I lay on my cot, staring at the ceiling pipes, replaying the moment. Why had he looked at me like that? Why had his voice trembled? I told myself it was nothing. It had always been nothing. But something had shifted. A hairline crack in the certainty I'd lived inside for 24 years. I woke at 4 a.m. By habit. By fear. The house buzzed with activity by 6. Hair stylists. Makeup artists. Laughter. I steamed dresses I would never wear. Eleanor passed me in silk and diamonds. "Remember," she said softly, "today is not about you." I nodded. But somewhere deep in my chest, something answered back. It never was. After the ceremony, the photographer gathered families for photos. I stood at the edge, holding a tray. The photographer frowned. "Is she family?" he asked, pointing at me. Before Eleanor could answer, Emily's father spoke. "Yes," he said firmly. "She is." The room went quiet. "Hannah," he continued, "come stand here." I obeyed. His hand rested on my shoulder, steady, grounding. When the camera flashed, his grip tightened slightly, like he was anchoring me to something real. As he looked at the photo preview, his eyes filled. "That face," he whispered. "There you are." He turned away quickly, phone already in hand. I didn't know it yet. But that photograph was the last moment my old life existed. The wedding was supposed to be the end of my usefulness. That's what my mother said the morning after the engagement announcement, standing in the doorway of my room with her arms crossed, surveying me the way one inspects an old appliance. "You'll still live here," she clarified quickly. "But your role will change. You'll help your brother's wife settle in. Teach her how things work." How things worked. That phrase had followed me my entire life. I nodded, like I always did. Because nodding kept the peace. Nodding kept voices low. Nodding kept plates from flying. My brother, Daniel, was getting married to a woman named Leah. Leah was polite. Almost painfully so. She said, "Thank you," when I passed her the salt. She apologized when she bumped into furniture. She once offered to help me clear the table, and my mother shut that down so fast the air seemed to snap. "We don't do that," she said sharply. "Hannah knows her place." Leah laughed nervously. I smiled automatically. But something changed after that. Leah started watching. Not judging. Not accusing. Just noticing. She noticed that Daniel never carried his own plate to the sink. That I served tea without being asked. That my mother corrected my posture but never his tone. That I stood during conversations while everyone else sat. Once, when she thought no one was listening, she whispered, "Why do you do all this alone?" I didn't answer. Because the answer wasn't something you said. It was something you learned to survive. Leah's father arrived 3 days before the wedding. His name was Mr. Collins. He was quiet in a way that made rooms adjust themselves around him. Not loud. Not intimidating. Just observant. He shook hands slowly. Made eye contact. Asked questions. And waited for answers. The first time he spoke directly to me was during dinner. "Hannah, isn't it?" he said, passing me his plate instead of handing it to my mother. "Yes, sir." "You live here?" "Yes." "And you work outside the home?" "Yes." He nodded. "Busy life." My mother laughed. "Oh, she's always been helpful. Born with that instinct." Something flickered behind Mr. Collins' eyes. Instinct. He didn't say anything else. Just thanked me when I refilled his glass. But the next morning, I caught him watching me through the kitchen doorway as I scrubbed the sink. Not staring. Studying. Later that day, he asked if I'd join him for a walk to the store. My mother hesitated, but Leah intervened. "She's been inside all week," Leah said lightly. "Fresh air will do her good." My mother waved her hand. "Fine. But don't waste time." On the walk, Mr. Collins asked me simple questions. How long I'd lived at home. Whether I'd ever gone to college. What I wanted to do with my life. The last one caught in my throat. "I don't really think about that," I said. He stopped walking. "Hannah," he said gently, "everyone thinks about that. Some people just learn to bury it." I didn't respond. Then he asked the question that split everything open. "Do you and Daniel have the same parents?" I laughed. Too fast. Too loud. "Of course," I said. "Why wouldn't we?" He studied my face. No reason. But his eyes didn't leave mine. On the morning of the wedding, the house buzzed with noise. Hair dryers. Raised voices. Instructions thrown like darts. I ironed shirts. Polished shoes. Ran messages between rooms. Just before the ceremony, Mr. Collins asked for a family photo. "All of us," he said. "Before things get hectic." We lined up in the living room. My parents. Daniel and Leah. Mr. Collins and his wife. And me, standing slightly behind, as usual. The photographer raised the camera. Everyone closer, he said. Mr. Collins stepped forward and placed a hand on my shoulder, gently pulling me into the frame. My mother stiffened. The flash went off. Then another. Then another. After the photographer left, Mr. Collins lingered, staring at the preview screen on the camera. "What is it?" Leah asked. He didn't answer immediately. He enlarged the photo, tilted his head. Then he said quietly, "Hannah, may I see your face in the light?" Confusion rippled through the room. I stepped closer to the window. Mr. Collins' gaze moved between me and Daniel. Then to my mother. Then back to me. He took out his phone. "I need to make a call." My mother laughed nervously. "Is something wrong?" "No," he said calmly. "Something's been wrong for a long time." The call didn't happen in front of us. He stepped outside. When he returned, his expression had hardened, not with anger but certainty. "Hannah," he said, "I'd like you to come with me tomorrow. Just for a conversation." My mother bristled. "She'll be busy." "I'll make time," he replied. Not a question. A statement. That night, I couldn't sleep. Because for the first time in my life, someone had looked at me and seen something that didn't fit the story. The next day, I sat across from Mr. Collins in a quiet office. He slid a paper toward me. "A DNA test," he said. "Voluntary. Confidential." I stared at it. "Why?" I asked. He leaned forward. "Because the way your parents treat you doesn't match biology, or humanity. And because your face tells a different story than theirs." My hands shook as I signed. The results took 2 weeks. 2 weeks where my mother became watchful. Where Daniel avoided eye contact. Where Leah started pushing back. Small things. Questions. Boundaries. 2 weeks where I felt something dangerous growing inside me. Hope. When the call finally came, Mr. Collins asked me to come to his office. Alone. He didn't waste time. "Hannah," he said, sliding the folder across the desk, "you are not biologically related to your mother or father." The room tilted. My ears rang. "But," he continued, "you are related to Daniel. Half-siblings. Same father. Different mother." I stared at the paper. My entire childhood rearranged itself in my head. The favoritism. The cruelty. The phrase "some children are born to serve." It wasn't philosophy. It was justification. Mr. Collins' voice softened. "You were never meant to be invisible. You were made invisible to protect a lie." I didn't cry. I felt calm. Because suddenly, everything made sense. And lies don't survive sense. The knowledge was a weapon, though I didn't yet know how to wield it. 2 weeks later, the wedding passed. Flowers. Champagne. Smiles. Photos. Everyone was distracted by appearances. Everyone except me. Because I now had a map of the lies I'd been trapped in my entire life. I returned home after the honeymoon haze settled around Daniel and Leah. My mother greeted me with her usual clipped smile. "I hope you behaved while the guests were here," she said. "I wouldn't want any embarrassment." I nodded politely. But inside, something had changed. Politeness now felt like camouflage, not survival. Leah, for the first time, didn't look at me like I was a ghost. She looked at me like I was alive. "You don't have to do everything," she whispered one afternoon, handing me a glass of water. "Stop pretending for them." I smiled faintly. "I've been pretending for 27 years. She didn't reply. She only watched. And that watchfulness felt like an ally in the silent war I was about to wage. It began subtly. Dinner one night. My mother poured wine. Daniel refused it. I poured for him anyway. "Why do you keep doing that?" my mother snapped. "He doesn't need it." I set the glass down gently. "I know." My mother's eyes narrowed. "Then why?" "Because I can," I said simply. She stared. A small flinch of uncertainty passed across her face. A crack. The first crack. I began planting small seeds everywhere. A misplaced letter on my mother's desk that revealed minor truths she thought were buried. Casual mentions of conversations I overheard, phrased as questions. I wonder how Dad would feel if... Hints dropped to Daniel about the DNA conversation, phrased like innocent curiosity. You know, I've been thinking about the family. Funny how things work out. Each seed took root, invisibly. My mother grew cautious. My father grew irritable. Daniel grew uneasy. Leah watched, calculating. And I waited. Because once the first domino fell, the rest would tumble with their own weight. It happened on a rainy evening. The house felt smaller than usual. My mother sat in the living room, pretending to read. My father drank silently. I entered with a tray of tea. I poured my father's cup first. Dad, I said softly, do you remember how you treated me on my birthday, that Christmas dinner? He blinked. Hannah. No, Dad. Listen, I said, setting the tray down. I know everything now. The DNA. How you wanted to keep me invisible. How you justified it to yourself and everyone else. The room went still. You, my mother whispered, voice shaking. How, what are you saying? I took a step closer. I'm saying you spent my entire life pretending I belonged, when you knew I didn't. And for what? Your pride. Your story. My father's hands trembled around the cup. That's not true. Stop, I said, cutting him off. Stop lying. You can't anymore. Not with me. And then I laid it out. Every calculated observation. Every small psychological trap I had set. Every hint I had planted. Their calm facade shattered. It didn't come as screaming or violence. It came as quiet terror. My mother stopped ordering me around. My father stopped issuing commands. Daniel avoided conflict and left the house early most days. Leah smiled faintly, knowing the truth. The house no longer controlled me. I moved freely. I spoke freely. I existed visibly. I never shouted. I never raged. I simply became unignorable. The revenge wasn't about ruin. It was about clarity. Because the most powerful revenge is the one that forces your oppressors to see the truth, without you needing to raise your hand. Moral lessons. This story reminds us that appearances can be deceiving, and the people who are supposed to love us most may not always do what is right. It teaches the importance of self-worth. No one should accept being treated as less than human, no matter how long they've been told it's their place. Justice, truth, and courage often arrive unexpectedly. And even in the darkest situations, holding on to hope and recognizing your own value can change your life forever. It also warns that blind obedience and submission can allow cruelty to persist, while standing up for yourself, even quietly, can be the first step toward reclaiming your life.